Ciao a tutti.
Ciao. Potete cominciare tutti in una direzione, magari prendo la lato, guardando da tutte le parti, fare il giro.
Ok, cominciamo lì.
Sì, perfetto.
Okay? Thank you.
Poi qua.
And to the center, please. Center.
Yeah, you for me?
Moira. Sandro.
Grazie Andrea.
Allora togliamo i attori, resta il cast.
Sono
attori, ma vostri?
Potete fare un passo in avanti? Perfetto.
Sì, perfetto.
Siamo sempre lì.
Sì.
Ah, ancora un passo avanti. Ci
Solo un
dicono.
passo avanti?
Sì. Ok, partendo da lì.
Yes.
E
Qua nell'angolo per favore.
And to the center, please.
anche da questo lato.
E a destra? E a destra per favore. O a destra?
Magari possiamo vedere se stanno
Ok, facciamo i scatti singoli.
Sì. Facciamo...
Ok. Presa da lì.
Facciamo da te.
Numero please.
Dietro?
Ecco. Could you take a little step to the left? Yeah, that would be
E
perfect.
Francesco.
E a destra? Yeah.
And down here in the middle, please. Very good.
E Tomoe? Over here, Francesco? Over here? Yeah, thank you.
Ok.
Grazie.
Grazie mille. Andrea, vai.
Il direttore?
Just take a step.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Grazie.
E a destra?
Pure il gesto magari. Gesto bello. Ah, guarda.
Could you take a little step forward? Yeah, perfect. Stay right here.
Yeah, just look at it.
Look up.
Ok.
And
grazie.
without...
Cappello così.
Sì, grazie.
without cappello?
Without cappello. Ok. Adesso vado dove vado dal giro. Vai, senza cappello.
Yeah, go down here.
Grazie, grazie.
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 Grazie mille. Linda.
Ecco là.
No, dico già.
Take a step forward.
Ancora.
Stay here for a second.
Sì, grazie. Grazie.
Yeah.
E destra?
Could you come to the middle here?
Take a look to the left
E
again.
destra per voi?
E uno sguardo qui nell'angolo per proseguire. Grazie.
Yeah, to the center again. Back to the center, please.
Please.
Look up. Look up.
Look up.
Grazie.
Francesco.
Yeah, so is that over here? Right, thank you.
Francesco to the center. Francesco. Ecco.
Francesco, per voi. Per favore, per voi. Per favore, per voi.
Left.
Di là.
More left here.
Francesco to the center
Smile to
again.
left.
Yes.
A destra. Destra. This one's right.
The center down here.
Look up.
Please stay here.
Look up. One more time. Thank you.
To left again.
Thank you. Sorry.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
had its premiere here as a Berlinale special gala entry, L'ultima notte di amore by Andrea Di Stefano. It tells the story of a respectable police officer who for 35 years did his service without a single complaint. Never once did he have to shoot somebody. But on the last night before his retirement of all nights, something completely unforeseeable happens that changes his entire life. Starring one of the great Italian character actors, Francesco Fabino, last year at Cannes, very rightly celebrated for the leading role in Nostalgia. Watch now the press conference for the Italian film Out of Competition, a gala event for L'ultima notte di amore.
Okay. Thank you. Take a seat, please. As you know, this press conference will be in Italian, so get your headphones for the translation. Benvenuti alla conferenza stampa
A very warm
dell'ultima
welcome
notte di
to the
Amore.
press conference for the last night of
Molto
Amore.
onorati di avere con noi un grande regista e dei grandi attori.
Very honored to have a wonderful director and wonderful actresses and actors with us here.
I nostri ospiti,
So
a
I would
partire
like to
dalla
introduce
vostra
our
sinistra.
guests, starting from the far side.
Produttore Francesco Melzi.
Francesco Melzi, producer.
Il produttore Marco Cohen.
Marco Cohen, also one of the producers.
L'attrice protagonista Linda Caridi.
Linda Caridi, playing the lead.
È un onore avere con noi
And we're
Francesco
honored
Favino.
to have Pier Francesco Favino with us, also playing the lead role, of course.
Il regista Andrea Di Stefano.
Andrea Di Stefano, the director.
L'attore Francesco Di Leva.
Francesco Di Leva, supporting actor.
L'attore Wen Mao.
Wen Mao, also one of the actors.
E alla mia destra il distributore Massimiliano Orfei.
And Massimiliano Orfei, the distributor, who's sitting next to me.
Comincio con una domanda, ma sentitevi
Now,
liberi.
I'd like to start with a question, but do please feel free to put your questions as well. Just raise your hand so I know when you would like the microphone. I'd like to put a question, first of all, to the director.
Sei solito non solo dirigere i film, ma anche
generally
scriverli.
speaking, you don't just direct, but quite strikingly, you're also the screenwriter here. I wanted to ask you how you started thinking about this film. How did you work, and what does it mean to you bringing together these two practices? You've got the direction on the one hand, but also the writing of a film on the other hand.
L'idea è venuta in modo piuttosto semplice.
It was actually quite straightforward the way that I came up with the idea.
Un agente di polizia mi stava spiegando.
I was looking into a police officer. I was explaining to me all the background and all the information on a crime scene.
C'erano colleghi che avevano
And he said I was sure that there were some colleagues involved in this actual crime. And that made me think that it might be interesting to tell this story. I had an image of a police officer walking towards a crime scene, but not really in the role of a police officer, but already knowing what had happened and the background to it. And that's a scene, of course, that remains in the film when you see Francesco arriving on the scene of the crime right at the very beginning. When Franco walks towards that scene, it's very striking, of course. So I wanted to tell the story of this man who really, it has to be said, was somebody who had the aspiration to be honest. And he'd also started out his career with certain expectations as to what a police officer should be. However, life meant that he had to face very different realities. So the film starts at the moment when this man is forced to make a choice and to engage in a moral compromise. And that really creates a crisis for his entire life. As to writing this screenplay, it's not so terribly different, if you ask me, to be the screenwriter and to be the director. I imagine the film as if I was shooting them in my head. And what do? Well, I go along to the set and I try, when I'm there, to breathe life into what I've seen as images. And of course, the role of the actors is vital. Their performance is what turns a scene into something really memorable, a real experience for the audience, which is always very important for me. The experience for the audience is crucial. Creating a memory like when you remember dreams, you recall powerful, striking images, and they linger with you for years. So that's part of what cinema does. And it really reflects how well the actors have performed.
Prego, c'è una domanda.
A question from over there.
Mi chiamo Mahari Sigit.
My name is Mahari Sigit from African Refugee News. Thank you very much for this film.
Io ho vissuto a Milano.
I lived in Milan. I even studied in Milan.
Nel 70.
Way back when, in the 70s.
Porta Ticinese, Porta Romana, c'era
Porta Ticinese and all the rest of it, that really was where we were. There were very good police cops there, but they were also corrupt ones as well. Now, you have this drone scene at the beginning. It was actually a helicopter, as a matter of fact. I thought it was a drone. It was a helicopter. Oh, well, even better. Even more impressive. I thought it was a drone. Anyway, this wonderful aerial scene.
La storia era proprio bellissima.
It's very, very dramatic and impressive, very beautiful how it starts. Now, when the Chinese figures come into the story, there was something that I feel was missing almost. There was Franco Amore, there was the wife, but there's something that seemed a bit strange to me. I wondered about this sense of movement. There's the shootout as well, by the way. I mean, I've seen what the police do. A friend of mine was killed in Italy, as a matter of fact. So seeing somebody shooting at the Carabinieri is quite striking as well. So I wonder about this connection between Franco and the Chinese. I didn't really get that. I may have not been paying attention, but that meeting was very, very important. How did that connection come about?
Abbiamo lavorato la sceneggiatura con.
Well, we worked on the screenplay, and we wanted to tell a highly realistic story in terms of the current underworld scene and the crime scene in Milan. So we worked with actual police officers, people from the Carabinieri as well, and people from the intelligence services. They, in a sense, were the most useful in terms of the information they could provide us. And they described the Milanese underworld, and that's what you see here. It's not the kind of quotidian structure of the criminal underworld that you might imagine that it is. It's not what you might imagine it is. You don't have the mafia as such and links with other mafias, the Calabrian mafia and such like. It's more that there's criminal groups with all kinds of different geographical origins, and they work together if they can make money doing so. They don't mind cooperating if they can make cash. Sometimes those links might be quite surprising if you look at the fabric of the criminal underworld in Italy. So it is quite surprising, yes. It surprised us as well when we started investigating and exploring all of this. There's a question over there in the second row.
Ciao ragazzi, sono con
Good afternoon.
and Italian Film Festival Berlin. My question, meine Frage ist, weil wir
put my question in German. We bring Italian films to Germany. I'd like to ask all of you this question. Since Fellini and Rossellini, how has Italian cinema changed? What role does it have internationally? Italian films have won a lot of Oscars for Best Foreign Film. How has the situation developed? How is it perceived abroad? Is Italian cinema still a major cinematography, a major form of cinema?
Oh, good question.
Well, clearly, Italy has had a period, the after-war period, for example, when there were magnificent directors and very eclectic cinema makers as well. And they also invented all kinds of cinematic genres.
L'evoluzione poi non ha, penso quello sia stato un periodo estremamente
That was a very, very fruitful period. Almost a miraculous period, you could say.
sempre stato una fonte di grandissimi talenti.
But there's always been enormous talents in the film world in Italy.
Supportata come quella francese.
It's perhaps not as popular and well known as French cinema, but just take a look.
Un minuto e mezzo di film e sai chi sono, quella è una cosa rarissima.
Current Italian filmmakers and young Italian filmmakers too, and you look just for a couple of minutes at their film and you'll see who they are. Think of Paolo Sorrentino, Guadagnino, Garrone.
Che sono dei talenti unici.
They are really quite singular talents.
C'è una sorta di
and they really put their imprimatur on their films. There's a kind of
messa a fuoco nella teatralità.
Focus on theatricality in Italian filmmaking. I don't want to simplify everything, but of course,
con una storia fatta di quadri,
at the same time,
quadri in chiesa, strutture.
We're looking at the question of certain architectonic structures, frames, artwork. So we always have this kind of framing as well in our culture, our visual culture, right from the time that we're young.
Cinema anche italo-americano, da Tarantino,
and then there's Tarantino, Scorsese, De Palma, Coppola, the Italo-American side of cinema as well. That also has its roots in Italy and Italian culture as well. They grew up engaging with these series of families, their parents, and their roots. So there's enormous talents in Italy. Also actors as well. Just think of the spectrum that we have of Italian actors. They're really top class.
Si dovrebbe aiutare di più la cinematografia italiana.
And Italian filmmaking should be helped and funded a lot more. There are really, really good directors.
Mi permetto solo di dire, Francesco, che a questo tavolo
and perhaps I could say, well, here we really have some of the creme de la creme of Italian acting talent who've worked with all other major Italian directors as well over the last few years. They're at all of the major international festivals as well. Well, yes, it's actually a very complicated question. There's a whole host of different reasons. I'm talking as an actor. It's very complex to move beyond your own national cinema, particularly when there are certain roles that you tend to see being acted by American actors. For example, if the whole Gucci family is talking New Jersey English in a film, then it's hard to really get into that niche as well. And that, of course, is a responsibility of our producers too. That's because if our producers don't accept Italian acting talent, that we'll really never have a way to break out of this. And I'm sorry if I'm taking advantage of this platform, but I wanted not to make this a trade union issue, but we've got 1,500 actors who've come together, and we've got a communique which we'd like to read out to you. In Italy, people who work in the audiovisual sector have for months expected their contract on the national level to be renewed. The cast and the crew work without proper working rules which would protect them at their work. Actors in Italy have never had a proper collective contract establishing the rights and duties and minimum salaries, and that is because the producers' associations will not sit down and negotiate with them. And of course, we need to move ahead on this front to protect both the industry and the rights of the workers. And we can't continue to make audiovisual works on this front. So there's already been a strike, and the largest association of actors wanted to highlight this, highlighting the trade union actions that will be beginning now until the current situation changes, to keep our imaginary world alive, to keep our imagination alive, our creative work alive. Thank you for giving me the time to read that to you. Now, I think that I am able, on behalf of my country, to carry Italian cinema onto the international arena. Now, if you come to Italy and pretend that it's Mexico, or you pretend... I mean, it can be an Italian backdrop, but it's very important to make sure that we have the same rights as everybody else. 40% tax credit. But nonetheless, we're not really presented to you as actors. And there's a disrespect for our cinematic heritage, which is really quite shocking, I have to say. And the outcome of that is that you don't see our films any longer.
Avete un film che sta vincendo in tedesco.
So imagine there's a film that wins in German. I mean, it wins prizes all around the world, and it's produced by a major, but it's produced in German with German actors and a German director.
Quindi non ci si dica che il problema è la lingua.
So the problem's not language, because the facts show that that's not the case. The language is not the barrier. It's not a linguistic issue. It's something else. A question over here.
Buongiorno, Antonella Montesi, iNews.
Antonella Montesi is my name. So thank you to all of you, because it's a wonderful Italian film and it fills me with joy. Pierfrancesco Favino, I've got a question to put to you as to your versatility. Thank you very much for playing this role. We all know you from films like Pane e Libertà, and then there's you as Buscetta, Craxi. Now, is it possible that we're getting the right message or not? Is it true that really your whole mark is being as versatile as possible? Well, yes. That certainly is the case.
Io non penso che un attore debba riproporre se stesso.
I don't think that an actor should act himself. I don't think that I have a particular style of my own. There are the roles that have been offered to me, and I've been lucky enough to work a lot, and I'm very much involved in my work, and of course the audience also has the right to have alternatives and see others as well. But I've been fortunate enough to work with major directors over the past few years, including Andrea here, and they've allowed me to present storylines and contexts which are completely different one from another. I don't want to put something of myself into the character as such. I think that the character awakens something in my inner imagination. I've always loved actors who do that. As a viewer, I love to see actors that do this, getting lost in the role that they're playing. I'm not so interested in seeing an actor who just really acts himself. But there are great actors who do that nonetheless. However, I think that I'm in a different category in the other category just because that's the way that I am. May I just put a question? I wanted also to involve Linda. And the other actors in this discussion. Andrea was talking about the importance for him in working with you. All of the characters in this film really are complex, versatile and ambivalent, and they change, they develop throughout the film. And I wonder what kind of work you did together with the director to shape these characters. So Linda, if you'd like to kick off.
Buonasera.
Good afternoon.
Okay.
Am I audible? Yes.
Il lavoro fatto con Andrea è stato veramente vasto e stratificato.
There were many layers to work with Andrea, and from the very first rehearsal with our casting agent, who's here, Valentina Materiale. I'd like to say good afternoon to her actually as well. So Viviana was a real gift in how she was written. She was a very powerful figure. On the one hand, I managed to link up to something that's related to my roots, so I felt very free in terms of the creativity, the rhythm, the music. On the other hand, however, I also looked at other dimensions, moving away from traditional comedy and drama. There's this snapshot of reality that I found incredibly respectful and credible. The way in which people are depicted with all of their failings and flaws, with their normal quotidian being. I really felt that Andrea was a warm, constant presence on set, and there are moments that I really carry with me in my heart. He wasn't necessarily on the monitor looking at what was going on, but was really just a few steps away from me. He was really breathing this with us, really in the thick of things, and we worked on all of these different levels. There was the language, which became increasingly personal for each individual character, and then there was the physical aspect of this, and then also the interior aspect, the breath, the heart, the essence of it all. And Francesco, what about you?
È sempre difficile parlare dei propri personaggi.
It's always hard to talk about your own character. It's a little bit like talking about yourself.
Però ho avuto la fortuna 2 giorni fa di vedere il film.
2 days ago, though, I was lucky enough to see the film again and to see my character and that of the others as well. There was this urge to change their destiny, and I thought that was very interesting. It was an intriguing aspect of each and every one of us because of the family background of the figures. They all wanted to change their fate. They were always searching and looking for something. And there was a particular sound as well of the characters. It all started with a photo, actually, and Andrea called me up and said, "Can you send me a photo of you smiling? Make a selfie of you smiling." So I took a selfie and sent it to him. They were looking for the perfect friend for Pier Francesco Favino in this film, and I have to say that that friendship is one that we've been working on privately as well. We live in Rome and Naples, so it's not so easy, but thanks to Andrea, I got closer to Pier Francesco. He's a wonderful person. He has a wonderful personality. He's really my role model as an actor. I really admire him. So, emotionally, it was really wonderful, really fantastic. I have to say, he's just a few years younger than me, really. Anyway, what I was trying to say is that it's a really wonderful memory. There was a great mood on the set with a wonderful cast. And we shot it all on real film. I want to say that because that sound of film turning, the producers know how much it costs as well, but the sound of it is something that is powerful and it's full of life. And on proper film stock, you have the pressure of the film, and we have to stop every so often to put the film stock back in, and it's ages since we had to do that, and you can feel that spirit and this sense of poetry as well. So thank you for that. So, would Mr. Wimau like to add something? Yes. I'm very happy to have an opportunity to work with Andrea. He gave me a chance to play a wonderful character. When I met him, it really made me think of a classical Chinese text. And you have a monk there in that text. And he's a little bit like Andrea. And he's got a way of drawing the best out of people. I'm not a professional actor. I actually teach at the university. I don't know how to act, but Andrea really helped me. For example, wrote the backstory of this character, so I invented the backstory for my character, who started out in China and left via Hong Kong, and then from Hong Kong he went to Italy, and then he became a boss. It's not a mafia group, actually, but anyway, this backstory really helped me. Andrea said, well, don't be afraid. I mean, you're the big boss. Think of what you've done in China and Hong Kong. Don't be afraid.
È così. Poi mi è piaciuto tanto anche questo film.
And I really loved the film.
Per me, io non come attore, come una...
I'm not speaking now as an actor. I'm speaking as a member of the audience. This film sends a very clear, important message, respect for life. Franco, the lead, is very proud of the fact that for more than 30 years of service he hasn't killed anybody as a police officer, but it has to be said, you shouldn't just look at what somebody has done, but also need to take into account the things that they have not done. I think that's a very important message.
I
don't know about American films, but certainly in films in general, people don't take it seriously when people are killed. It looks as if it's all just a game. It's as something people do as frivolously as if they were just drinking a coffee, and this is something that's transmitted by cinema, by Hollywood cinema, by American cinema. I don't like that spirit. It has to be said that it's too easy to kill in real life. Think of families, for example, where there's domestic violence. Husbands kill their wives, children kill their parents. Politicians start wars as if they were drinking a coffee. There's another thing I like about this film. Perhaps it's the only Italian film that has so many Chinese characters in it, so many Chinese faces. It's very nice to see that. So I'm very happy to see those Chinese faces in the Italian film. And I have to say that it's not strange. It's as if we're like, at times we like football, we like to eat. We like to eat spicy food even. And they also think that families are very important. People work with their son-in-law and so on, their father-in-law. That's an Italian thing as well. 6 years ago or so, this wouldn't have been the same. But it's really part of the exchange of cultural cultures between Italy and China. Thank you. I think there's another question over there, is there not? Yes. The lady at the back. Good afternoon, and thank you. Thank you for this film. It was a really good thriller, enormously intriguing, high tension. I was really on the edge of my seat. I'd like to pick up on a few points that have already been raised that I thought were very important. Right from the outset, there's this spectacular vista and panorama of Milan. Now, like the usual American films where lots of people are killed, there are these kind of glorified heroic deaths. Would it be fair to say that, in a sense, it goes against the grain of the kind of American films? Think of Callaghan, for example, which in a sense recalls our Franco Amore, this chap who is quite quiet and is a really good chap, a man of integrity, Amore, as his name says, but there is this vision which is slightly different. This Italian vision, in fact. Milan is more beautiful than New York anyway, let's just make that clear from the outset. That's one thing, but then you don't see our lead role here acting like American cops. They try to save life as much as possible. It's almost like something set going against the grain, set in opposition to American cinema, although it is a very interesting American-style thriller. Well, yes, it's a spaghetti noir, one might even want to call it.
No, io credo scrivendo.
When I was writing,
in realtà il linguaggio del cinema,
I have to say,
attenzione su.
it's cinematic language that can create tension on any topic whatsoever.
Una sorta di uno può chiamarla moda nel
You could call it
raccontare una
that there's a certain
violenza
kind of
molto
fashion
grafica, spinta, che ci
to show
adesso è
very
quasi
graphic,
in film
over-the-top
che
violence, which you see in many films now.
con Pierfrancesco fin dal primo incontro
And with Pierfrancesco, right from the outset when we first met and read the screenplay together, or rather we put the screenplay on the table and chatted to each other, and we said to each other, well, there's two ways we can do this. We can do this American style, or we can start to do something profoundly Italian.
La nostra ambizione di tutte e due,
our ambition, for both of us actually,
in completa simbiosi, nel senso che eravamo veramente,
was exactly the same. We were in utter symbiosis.
Intendeva quando m'ha detto
we had the same aspirations. When he said something to me, I understood exactly what he meant. We were really on the same wavelength, and there's something that is deeply Italian.
Hai dubbi. Sì, è una persona.
The hero, well, he has doubts. He
con le sue zone d'ombra,
has his darker sides.
Ha una sua morbidezza, è divertente agli amici.
He is witty. He's very tender. He has a very deep love for his wife, but he's also somebody who's a little bit naive.
Non pensi che potrebbe mai in qualche modo reagire, poi invece
people think that he's not going to react, but
deve provare a salvarsi.
He has to try to save his skin, and what he does is quite surprising. And right from the start of the film, we feel attached to this figure, thanks to Pierfrancesco's wonderful acting, which makes him so touching and moving. And when his life is at risk, you feel tense. You said you're on the edge of your seat, and it's partly because of that, because we like him. We want him to be okay.
Prego. Io vorrei ritornare, io non era una critica, adesso
I wasn't trying at all to be critical.
vedere il film non so niente.
When I go to see films, I don't know anything. I don't read anything at all beforehand.
Mia figlia mi fa, sì, c'è un film italiano, L'ultima notte.
My daughter said to me, oh, well, this film,
Io ho pensato un film d'amore.
The Last Night of Amore, and I kind of thought that it was going to be a love story. I mean, it is a love story in a way. There is so much love between in the family, love for the child. And my question is for the producers, though. Was it difficult to find funding at the moment, particularly because of COVID? I asked a German producer about that, and she said yes. There is a crisis. RAI might have given you a helping hand, but where did the cash come from? How was the funding? And I'd like to ask a question to the producers as well. It would also be interesting to know what it means to take the risk of shooting on 35mm.
Io credo che non è in questo momento storico non è un enorme problema. Ci sono soldi in giro.
It's particularly difficult at the moment. There is money available. There are people from Vision, from Indiana. There's tax credits. There's all kinds of different sources of funding. The problem's not to find the cash to make films at the moment. The serious problem lies elsewhere. It's getting people back into film theatres, particularly in Italy, but elsewhere as well. There was a real crisis for cinemas in the States last year. And also, there's a crisis when it comes to art house film as well. And art house cinemas. There are good films around. Not heaps and heaps of them, but there are good films about. But getting people back into film theatres, there's a problem, because otherwise everything will collapse. You need to have an audience, because if you don't have audiences, everything collapses, the whole house of cards. Finding the money for making films is not a problem. We'll keep on finding money for quite some time. The problem is really to have audience support for the industry. That's my point of view anyway. And also about the 35 millimeters. Do you want to answer on that? 35 millimeters, yeah. Well, we cursed a bit when he said that he wanted to shoot on 35 millimeters. We moaned and groaned, but we supported him. And it is, of course, not cheap, and it's also time-consuming. But when we see the film and on the kind of screens that you have here, and it's got Atmos sound mix, I think it's one of the only Italian films that has Atmos, recently anyway, so we can really enjoy it. It's really like seeing a film that's really worth seeing in a cinema. We're really looking forward to it. I'm sure you'll enjoy it this evening. There's a couple more questions. Go ahead. Good afternoon. I come from Romania, and I have a question for Andrea Di Stefano. Were there other reasons to choose Milan as the setting? Yes.
Trovavo interessante ambientare il film.
We thought it would be interesting to set the film
che fosse considerata da più parti
somewhere that most people really think of as being the city of fashion, the sparkling city. There's this famous ad that shows Milan, and there's all these industrialist families there as well, and major sporting events.
Ho pensato che fosse interessante, visto che le altre grandi metropoli italiane in qualche modo
and I thought that the other major Italian cities have already had this sort of crime story set there, and I was interested to look at the flip side of the image that we have of Milan, the negative side of this usual snapshot of the city. And the feedback we've had proved that that was correct. And at first we thought, well, is this okay? Is it a good idea or not? Where will we set it? And it turned out that Milan was the most interesting place to talk about nowadays. There's another aspect as well, if you ask me.
Noi tutti viviamo in una società in cui
we all of us live in a society
siamo circondati da successo.
Where every morning we wake up and we're surrounded by success.
Non c'è una persona che fallisce.
You wake up, you look at social media, and you don't see anybody failing or having a flop, and you feel that you're the only one who fails on certain fronts. There's the chap like this who's earning 1,800 a month with 2 families to support his daughter who's abroad, and his wife who he wants to support will end up moonlighting because it's illegal to have a second job if you're a police officer, if you're a carabinieri in Italy, and he lives in a city where the gap between rich and poor is most striking, and where people are seeking success above all else. There's a lot of wealth in Milan, and it's very visible. And this is a man who lives his life out in the streets. He doesn't just sit in an office. Every single day his nose is rubbed in it, and you can see it, this wealth flashed about. When he has the opportunity of betraying himself, but at the same time he's able to move into this golden space, and he's surrounded by a city which says to him, you deserve more, actually. That's what we're told every single day as we scroll through our phones. You deserve better, you deserve more. What are you prepared to do to get that? And there is this cone of light that is cast upon you, and it may light you up, but it may also burn you so that you go up in flames. It would have been different in Rome or in Naples. Milan is really about that light, which is just reflected in his case. Thank you. One last question, and then I'm afraid we have to wind up. Raffaele Bernini from the Bologna Cinematheque. A lot of questions have been put, and I've perhaps heard part of the answer to this, but I'd like to put my question nonetheless. People talk about a certain kind of American thriller, but actually you have Italian thrillers as well, and police films. There's Milano Calibro 9, for example. There's all kinds of thrillers and police films set in Milan. Now you're returning to that. You're, in a sense, reinvigorating that imaginary space. And what does it mean to return to that and to pick up on those films? That's very important for cinema, but it may also be important politically and culturally in Italy as well. You talked about looking into the criminal world, but it's a criminal world with certain very pronounced connotations. I mean, there's no Milanese or Lombardians amongst the mafia you depict, so there are certain connotations. I wonder if that could perhaps be problematic as well, and I wanted to ask you what you think about that issue, and I'd like to ask the actors what their models, well, where do they draw inspiration? Were there role models here perhaps related to those earlier Italian police procedurals and thrillers? No, I wasn't so much referring to earlier Italian films, although I realise that there are certainly some sequences that might remind you of those. They might perhaps refer back to that Italian style of thriller.
Erano dei film che ho guardato sempre con molto interesse.
Those are films I always enjoy looking at. They're full of energy.
Protagonisti iconici, ma io credo
and they have iconic actors in the lead as well.
Nel nostro film,
I think there's something different in our films, though.
Al cinema del passato. Ecco, c'è quella zona.
Looking back at the cinema of the past, I would say there's an interesting zone that we're good at in Italian cinema, which is a mix of comedy and drama.
Tutti gli attori che sono qui seduti
all of the actors here played their part.
Del film con scene improvvisate dove loro sapevano.
They also improvised in certain scenes, then they managed to have both drama with a twist of comedy, which is a tricky thing to do, actually.
Riguardo alla narrazione visiva.
As to the visual mode of narration, the choices we took in depicting the criminal underworld in Milan, my film is the kind of way that I like to make cinema. I don't want to change society. I make films about an unjust society. I don't intend to change the world with a fictitious film. I based this on meetings with people from the intelligence services and with files, and so nobody ever said to me, well, just a minute, there's this band at Porta Romana, and they do exactly this kind of thing, and they have diamonds smuggled in from Africa and get them cut in Africa. I mean, if they had, it would have been a different kettle of fish, but it would have been erroneous and it would have been too dangerous to be too close to reality. You have to look at the storyline, and there's also the question of there not being Lombards in this. I mean, do you want to have a film that is entirely made up and tell them something that doesn't exist, or is it better actually to really root your film in the spirit of reality? I like to take audiences to the cinema and say, well, this is my perspective, it's my point of view, based on very specific, in-depth investigations and examinations.
Mettere I personaggi davanti al precipizio, insomma, sull'orlo del precipizio rispetto a delle realtà vere, concrete.
Really, to have a clear link to the actual fact of the world. As far as I'm concerned, well, there's no role models in this genre.
Se devo riferirmi a un tipo di umanità raccontata da certo cinema, mi viene più in mente il cinema piccolo borghese anni 70, cioè alcuni personaggi che
70s
in un modo
bourgeois
diverso
cinema,
poteva incarnare
almost Sordi, for example, at a particular point in time. That's more a source of information to me than actual thrillers and such like. There's this strong element of humanity in it, but it's not a stylistic reference. It's more a reference to this particular type of character and the Italian character of this film.
Sia ben descritto da quello spazio che c'è tra l'onesto e il fesso.
Lies in that space between being very honest and being taken for an idiot. And perhaps we don't realize quite how very Italian that is. It's that area that we're exploring. And that's where this character has to take his decision. So Linda, then we really do have to wind up. And one question for the distributor as well. Yes, for Viviana. Viviana, well, the way that Andrea wrote it, it's very specifically Italian. And there are models that I've taken on board since I was small. There's Donna Maria, for example, Sabina. Meshup. There's this idea of dedication and drama. There's a dark side to it, and yet at the same time there's also irony, and there's an ability with a click of the fingers and a good Parmigiano aubergine dish that you can turn bad into good. Massimiliano, if you could rapidly say a few words about what happens next with the film, the next steps. Well, thank you, Lorenzo, and good afternoon to everybody. Of course, from here on the 9th of March, the film will be released globally, first of all in Italy, and we'll really roll it out with all the guns, so to speak, just as powerfully as the content of the film is. We were talking about the difficulty of funding films at this point in time when the market is in difficulty, not just in Italy, but everywhere. The last Night of Amore is our attempt to respond to that difficulty. It's a major production. We've got Universal involved, Indiana Vision, Square One. We'd like to thank them as well. They're in Germany. The film will, little by little, released theatrically across various countries, France quite soon, and then there'll be a theatrical release worldwide. So it's an attempt to respond to a difficulty that the market is currently grappling with. We want to raise the bar and present our cinema and the international arena in the same way as it was in the past. Thank you. Thank you to all of our guests. The last Night of Amore. We'll see you at the premiere this evening. Thank you.